we have two items on the agenda tonight. The first one is the inclusionary housing plan for 550 10th Avenue between 40th and 41st Streets on the east side of 10th Avenue by Gotham Development. And then discussing the city budget for next fiscal year for FY23. Maria, if you can go through the rules of how the Zoom works so everyone understands. Can't hear you, Maria. No sound.
Can you hear
now.
me now?
Yes, yes.
So the run of show, just give me a sign if you can't hear me. Basically, the run of show that I want to get tonight is that, so I'll just give the technical part. So if this is your first time attending the meeting, what's going to happen is we are going to all hear a presentation. First, the committee, who you see on the panel, is going to speak and ask questions. Then members of the public can ask questions or make comments. Then the discussion will go back to committee. And sometimes what happens is, and I'm sure on this item, we will have a discussion and we'll either write a letter of support or write a letter making recommendations. The most important thing is if you want to be able to speak tonight or to ask questions or make a comment and you are an attendee, what you need to do in order to speak is press the raised hand button on your screen. And if you're calling in, I don't know if anyone's calling in.
Yes, one.
One person is calling in. And if you decide that you need to speak or want to speak, you need to press *9 to raise your hand, okay? And *6 to unmute. That's *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute. And we can begin.
So let's go around quickly and just introduce the members of the committee. Rhea?
I'm sorry, Joe. You said introduce ourselves? Maria Ortiz, co-chair. Along with Joe.
Good morning, good evening. JD Noland, member of the committee.
Betty?
Betty McIntosh, member of the committee.
Dolores? Unmute.
I'm still Dolores Rubin, whether I'm on my team or not.
Katie?
I am the invisible one this evening, but I am Katie Stokes, one of the members of the MCB4.
Jessica?
Hi everyone, Jessica Chait, a very wet Jessica Chait, so I'll dry off and then join you on camera in a minute. Nice to be with all of you.
James?
Hi, James Wallace, member of the committee, live in Chelsea.
Hector?
Hello, Hector Vasquez, member of the committee, live in Chelsea.
Okay.
Roberta?
Hi, Roberta Barnett, Chelsea resident, CB4 and HHS member.
Sabrina?
Sabrina Rivero, community member, Hell's Kitchen.
We also have Nelly Gonzalez from our community district office. And then if we can go through and start out with the applicant. First tonight is the Gotham presentation. And I guess Ken, and then you can have the team introduce themselves.
Sure. Well, I'm Ken Lowenstein. I'm land use attorney with the firm Holland Knight, representing the Gotham organization. Who's the applicant, when it's affiliate of Gotham, who's the applicant for this inclusionary application. Brian?
Yeah, Brian Kelly, president of the development side of the Gotham organization. I'll provide the presentation overview, but also to the left of me, you cannot see is Niels Theodore, who's an analyst at Gotham. Stephen, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Stephen Straitman. I'm an AVP on the development team at Gotham.
And Krista?
John with Handel Architects. I'm a project architect for the project.
Okay, Ken, take it away.
So Brian will, I guess Krista was, so you have the presentation, someone will put up the presentation and Brian will lead us through it.
Well, Stephen, while you're putting it up, so to start, first of all, thank you, committee, for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to present 550 10th Avenue. mixed-use development comprised of neighborhood retail, community facility space should be 2 floors of office use for Covenant House International, and then mixed income rental housing above. Stephen, go to the next slide. Just to introduce ourselves, the team, the Gotham organization, isn't a stranger to your community. We're a 108-year-old firm of 5 generations deep. Our experience is diverse, building across different spectrums, formerly as a general contractor, also as a developer, with a focus on affordable and mixed income housing being our prime skill set. But we've also, as a general contractor, have built institutional facilities, hospitals, office buildings, schools, and retail centers. Our team, we like to view ourselves as a community developer. We're vertically integrated with expertise in development, property management. While we're not a general contractor, we have in-house construction expertise, marketing and compliance personnel on staff, and then accounting as well. Our organization has over 100 professionals across the various functions. We also pride ourselves on being a responsible employer for building maintenance, so we're signatory with 32BJ. The other key team members on the call and also just part of the team are Handel Architects. Our construction manager is intended to be Monadnock Construction, mechanical by Cosentini, structural by DeSimone, geotechnical by Langen. So we've assembled a best-in-class team. And then, as you know from this call, represented by Ken Lowenstein from Holland & Knight for the affordable housing component as well as land use. Just want to give you an overview of some of our local experience. I'd say the most impactful being a project at Gotham West on the far west side of Hell's Kitchen, which we completed in 2013. In summary, 1,250 homes that are mixed income in nature across all different income spectrums, from very low and low to moderate, middle, and market rate. This was a public RFP we won many years ago, rezoned in concert with community support and feedback, and also included the rehabilitation of a historic school into for-sale condominium units, which was a smaller component of the master plan, as well as we coordinated with the SCA, as there was a portion of the larger site that went for a public school. The second example of a building that Gotham constructed and owns and still owns is the Nicole at 400 West 55th Street, which was completed in 2004. And that is also a mixed income development with both affordable and market rate homes. Next slide, please. So 550 10th Avenue is a full avenue width site on 10th Avenue, bounded by 41st Street at the north and 40th Street to the south. This proposed development is part of a 2-phased redevelopment. I'll give you a slight background on phase 1, but as you can see, the site is essentially rectangular shaped. Next slide, Stephen. The existing condition at the property today is a mid-rise building, which is currently occupied by not-for-profit Covenant House. Covenant House is expected to vacate the property before year-end and move into its brand new purpose-built institutional facility just next door, facing 41st Street with a through lot from 41st Street to 40th Street, but just east of 10th Avenue. So upon Covenant House's vacancy of this building into their brand new home, which is purpose-built, we would demolish this building that exists today and develop the mixed-use building, which we're going to tell you more about. Next slide. The proposed development would be encompassed by 2 affordable housing programs. One is electing, as Joe did correct us, there was some nomenclature in the application for voluntary inclusionary housing, so VIH, under option 2 of the Hudson Yards Special District, coupled with option F of Affordable New York. That creates an approximately 436,000 square foot development. As of right, per zoning, 522 feet tall, 8 inches, 45 stories, 453 homes. The podium of the building will be activated with 9,000 square foot of retail, 6,000 of that being at grade, 3,000 of that being below grade. That's intended to be neighborhood retail focused. About 12,000 square feet of indoor residential amenities comprised of lounge areas, co-working, fitness, and then there are, which you will see in plan, 2 outdoor terraces. All of these amenities, indoor and outdoor, intended to be accessible by all residents of the building, and then additional supportive amenities such as bike storage and common building laundry. Next slide. The affordability of the homes is focused on through the 2 different options. As I mentioned, option 2 of the VIH in Hudson Yards, which would lead to 10% of all the homes in the development to be reserved for low income under the 70 AMI ban, and then 20% of all homes within the development at 125 AMI. So that would be defined as middle income. There would be 316 market rate homes, and then the 137 inclusionary housing homes, which are also, by technicality, also affordable New York homes. They're both, they're inclusionary and affordable New York. The affordable homes would all be provided with access to all amenities. Gotham does charge a rate for access to those amenities for the affordable homes, but they are at a deep discount based on what affordable households could afford. They like to charge something so that everybody has a sense of equity for it, but it'll be proportional. It would not be the same price which the market rate tenants pay. There would be substantial uniformity of finishes between the market rate and affordable homes, and every single home would have washer and dryers, the exception being only efficient studios, which market rate homes would not have the washer dryers, and neither would the affordable. Those being a really small or super small studios, but standard studios would have the washer dryers. Next slide. This just gives you a sense of the unit distribution through a stacking plan. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, there are different color codes that denote the types of homes. But what you can see here is that the affordable homes from studios through 2 bedrooms are uniformly distributed. If anything, they exceed the HPD program requirements, as we have a number of units which run through to the top of the building. And they're also located at different parts of the building. They're not aggregated in one line versus the other to the right or to the left. We felt like they were pretty proportionally designed throughout the building, but stacked, which a rental building should have, is stacked units to create an efficient cost structure.
Brian, you have sent this to the board, right? This presentation, because this is very hard to read visually on the screen right now.
Yes, and Joe will, as soon as the meeting's over, we'll distribute via email.
Great.
Next slide, Stephen. The site plan, so in yellow is the location of the tax lot, the property upon which the new Covenant House facility exists. That's the home that Covenant House is moving into. That phase has a 4-story portion tidied up against 41st Street on the north with a setback, and a 12-story portion. You can see there creating that mid-rise building. And then the rear yard has a courtyard that sits just south of a 1-story terrace area. And the future development in turquoise is the 550 10th Avenue mixed-use building, which I mentioned rises as a high-rise above the podium with the neighborhood retail at the ground, 2 floors for Covenant House office on the 2nd and 3rd floor, and then the homes and amenities above. On the left-hand side, working from if you work with the diagram on the left side of the page, the gray area is back-of-house access for the residential lobby, so service and move-ins. The purple is the lobby area for Covenant House's future 2 office floors, so their own dedicated office area. Then the pinkish area is the residential lobby, with a vestibule and revolving door. And everything else in yellow is the neighborhood retail. You can see there in pink also that there is a substantial bike room tucked in behind the retail, with the idea that the bikes can come in and out through the service area, which is an ideal movement for flow for those. The diagram on the right is just a blow-up version of the residential lobby in the back of house. Next slide, Stephen, please. The amenities focused on really being purposeful and useful, not gimmicky. The design being really unique. So you can see from the top left, the lobby designed to be welcoming with a focus on some greenery. On the upper right-hand corner, a very natural palette for the 8th floor gym area with focus on cardio, free weights, classes. There'll be an area for studio, yoga or fitness classes. The bottom left, the 8th floor lounge, which is really going to be designed as an open space, more flexible for co-working or just lounging. And then at the top of the building, at the 45th floor, there would be a lounge with beautiful skyscraper views looking south, as well as direct access to an outdoor deck at the top of the building, accessible for all the residents. Next slide, Stephen, please. This is just to give you an overview of, on the top left, the 8th floor terrace. That would have seating areas. It would be landscaped. There would be an outdoor TV, a barbecue area with communal seating and private seating. And then in the corner, more like an outdoor living room. So multifunctional, multi-programmed, with the idea of maximizing utilization. And then at the south end of that 8th floor, in the right-hand side, the gym area does have 2 double doors that go out to an area where someone could just stretch or to get a breath of fresh air, looking at the southern views, which are quite nice. Next slide, Stephen, please. At the 45th floor, which really has western and southern exposures, that program was designed with the idea of sunbathing, views, having the lounge seats and seating, really to take advantage of the New York City skyline, and keeping times like the fall and summer in mind to give people additional outdoor spaces to enjoy, aside from public parks that there are a number, quite available in the area. Next slide, please. So in terms of schedule, we expect to finish Covenant House's new facility this quarter, so this year, and to move them into the facility, and expediently right after that, start soft interior demolition, followed by demolition of the existing building. Thereafter, going full speed ahead with the vertical construction of the new building. We would expect construction, including demolition, to go from the end of 2021 through the earlier part of 2025, and then to be through the marketing and leasing process from 2025 to 2026. So this is obviously a long-term plan and a significant investment in the community, which we're committed to. Next slide. With that, we would like to thank you for the opportunity to present this and open up a conversation to any thoughts you may have, and also to questions.
I think you need to present the inclusionary units and layouts. That's a normal thing we do here.
You're saying specific unit floor plans?
Yeah, you need to show us some sample floors of how it works. And then also you have micro units. You have to explain what that is to the committee.
Yeah, so we do have micro units. I don't believe we have any designated as VIH units because they wouldn't meet the dimensional requirements for an HPD unit. So the market rate units have been designed to be designated as those efficient micro type apartments.
Could you explain for a moment just what that type of unit means at all for people who don't have any information about it?
Yeah, so if a standard studio is 400 square feet or 450 square feet, an efficient studio is 375 square feet, which would not meet the minimum HPD inclusionary housing unit size, but would meet a DOB code standard minimum size for a studio apartment. It has unique features such as a Murphy bed that could be built into the wall. So giving a tenant an opportunity to not have the cost of furnishing a home. Usually people that are renting studios in a lot of cases are younger folks. So gives them a bit more flexibility on how they furnish the apartment. So as before they head off to their day at work, by folding the Murphy bed into the wall, they can situate their apartment up for how they intend to use it in the afternoon or evening when they come back from work. So gives a bit more flexibility and function to the apartment. That being the main feature, it still has a code requisite kitchen. So it still has a cooktop and stove, a microwave, refrigerator, sink, full kitchen, as well as obviously a 3 fixture full bathroom to make it a permanent residence. So it's frankly just a bit smaller, more efficient in size, and the uniquest feature I would say is the Murphy bed. We coupled the micro homes on the few lower floors also by having an additional community room at that floor to sort of couple with the marketing concept that if those homes are a bit smaller, people may want a little bit more additional space on their floor just to lounge or network.
I also want to note that this micro unit issue is not an initiative of the developer, but of HPD and the Department of City Planning, and a broad term in the city to be able to develop these kind of units. Could you go back to the stacking chart for a second before we go to floor plans? Right. So am I incorrect? I do see inclusionary housing units in the micro units. I see them on the right hand of the chart in the bottom. It's very small. Is that incorrect?
Affordable New York units. I see
Well,
affordable New York, micro blue.
Yes, on that floor there are, but those are standard size studios. They're not micro size studios.
Right.
Also, okay, so in other words, the label in that case doesn't really apply to the units.
Right.
No, and there's no on here. There's no micro units indicated as inclusionary or affordable New York.
Got it. Okay. So could you walk us through some floor plans so we can see the layout of these units?
We did not include in the presentation an enlarged floor plan. I'd be happy, Joe, to send an enlarged floor plan immediately following the call. It just was not included in the presentation. Okay,
so I just bring this to Ken. We've never done a presentation where you haven't presented the units, so that's kind of odd. So if you know, right?
I mean, you say so, Joe. I mean, honestly, don't.
No. Well, you're the master of this, Ken.
I accept your statement. I'm not arguing with you, but and we.
Yeah, there's definitely.
It was an oversight, and as Brian said, we will correct it. But
yeah, there's definitely nothing to hide. There's definitely.
Oh no, I don't think for a moment.
We sent the drawings.
No, I've seen the drawings, and usually they're presented to the committee so people can understand exactly how the units are laid out, where they are on the floors. So one of the problems we're having here in a stacking chart, which is a flat representation, it does not show where the units are on a floor. While we're waiting and having a discussion, can one of your team please find at least one floor so we can see how this thing lays
Crystal, will you
out?
send me a link, please?
Yes, I'll send you a link right now. Hold on.
Thank you.
Yeah, if we can circle back to that.
Yeah. The normal issues that the committee considers in a inclusionary housing application are layout, meaning where are the apartments distributed. So first, I want to just note that thank you very much, because you have inclusionary units throughout the building except for the very top floor. That well exceeds the 65% required by inclusionary housing. So that's a great thing right here. And I think as we go through it, we should commend the developer for this. But we don't know how they lay out in terms of exposure and stuff. That's one of the reasons we're asking that question. And then Ken or someone from the team, can you take us through the finishes? You did send that document. also.
Sure. Stephen, if you want to go to the exhibit.
Sabrina, I'll come back to the committee members as soon as we get further along in the presentation.
So
Go ahead.
What we have up on the screen is a unit finish comparison between the VIH homes and the market rate units. For the most part, they're substantially comparable. The differentiations are in just a few areas. The market rate units have engineered wood floors. That's what the market demands from an aesthetic perspective. The affordable units have a wood look, luxury vinyl tile plank floor. Actually, from a maintenance perspective, the vinyl tile plank floors are better. My management folks would prefer we do those in the market rate units. It's the marketing people who tell us it's not marketable, but the distinction is out there as to the level of finish between the two. Both would have the same, they have laminate kitchen cabinets. The affordable units have white upper cabinets, so do the market rate units, and they both have wood look finish at the lower cabinet, so they're the same. Both would have backsplashes at the kitchens. The affordable units with an engineered stone white countertop, same countertops as the market rate units. The market rate units have a slightly elevated mosaic tile type backsplash. We would do a ceramic tile backsplash at the affordable units. I'd say the distinction at the countertop and backsplash areas. Both would have a stainless steel type of refrigerator. In both cases, it's an upgrade in the market rate where we would buy Bomberg. Whirlpools are used in the VIH homes, but again, both would be stainless steel. Same with dishwashers. The market rate may have panel ready. I don't know that the decision has been definitively made, but it may be panel ready. Both would have microwaves. Again, both would be stainless steel. So all of the homes would have stainless steel appliances. The same type washer dryers, as we mentioned, all homes would have washer dryers. Bathroom floors, both would have tiled floors, mosaic being a distinction in the market rate floors, and then bathroom walls in both would both have the same porcelain tile. So there are very few distinguishing factors, but for transparency, and we like that you were asked to lay this out this way, those are the distinctions.
Can you please, for the committee's understanding, explain what panel ready means?
Panel ready just meaning a refrigerator or a dishwasher that has an insert that you could put a piece of millwork on it so that it essentially, hides the refrigerator. It looks like it's built into the cabinetry.
What we're talking about is the new fashion, which is very fashionable right now, where the idea that appliances should not be seen in kitchens. It's a bizarre thing. It's the flavor of the moment, and it'll last for a period of time and then be discarded and moved to something else. But the appliances themselves are the same grade. That's correct, Brian?
Yeah, and again, from a maintenance perspective, putting those panels on the refrigerator could become a repair issue, an expense for us. So I don't love it, but from a marketability perspective, that's what's in vogue. And so we have to make the decision if we're doing it or not. But I want to put it out there that we may do it so that the distinction is out there.
Understood. And could you just go again about the units, that in this case, all of the units, even the affordable New York units, are all counted as inclusionary because of the VIH and Hudson Yards, and therefore they're all permanently affordable. Is that statement correct?
Yes.
So folks, just for the committee, that's very important. We've seen many of these projects that have a certain tranche that are inclusionary, a certain tranche are affordable New York in order for them to access certain financing and tax exemptions. And in this case, everything is permanently affordable. So we don't have two separate types of units, one expiring and one not. Have you found the floor plans yet? Brian?
Maybe you can zoom in, Stephen. Yeah, sorry, Joe.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Perfect. You got to zoom in so we can see them.
I am 1 second. Let me just. And Brian, this is the typical tower.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it labeling the plans here?
See, just so you know, for future use, they're normally presented with color so we can see which is which. But if you can just walk us through so we can understand it.
Stephen, are they labeled as inclusionary?
I'm looking, I just, Chris, these ones I don't believe are labeled.
Joe, while they're sorting that
Sorry,
out,
I was on mute. Yeah, scroll down once we get up to that one that has the above the electrical closet where we have the large walk-in. Yes, stop there. That's an
Got
inclusionary
it.
one
Okay,
bedroom.
here's an IH1, for instance.
Perfect. So
Joe,
I
let
think
me
one of
just throw something
go ahead.
out there. I just wanted to let you know that this was in the Dropbox. It's just they're not isolated and color coded as you noted, but this was in the Dropbox. So
No, I know it's in the Dropbox, but for presentation purposes, the committee
Right.
should not struggle to figure it out. People are not used to reading plans. We got a nice clear set that says X, Y, Z, so we understand. what's
totally, totally.
what. I wouldn't have, yeah. So that is an example of an inclusionary unit, correct? As
Yes.
far as 9 to 33. Okay. And then where can you show us another inclusionary unit on this floor?
If you go directly across the hall, Stephen,
Yeah, it's just
From
hard to
where- okay.
navigate on here. So Joe, here's another one. A
Right.
2-bedroom, 2-bath.
So the first one, just tell me if I'm correct, Krista, was facing west,
Yes. Now this one is facing east.
and this one is facing east.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things the committee is always concerned is that they're distributed and also on multiple exposures of the building. So in fact, there is adequate light and air and views and everything are done properly. So I think if you can just, so we can be assured of that, send us that with the color shading, and then when we opine on it, we'll give you the response.
We will definitely create a color coded plan. Also, just a feature, for example, is Stephen, go back to that unit. We have, while they're not required by HPD, we because we had the space, we created a walk-in closet at the 2-bedroom, 2-bath inclusionary unit. Just an enhancement, I would say, is above and beyond what is typical.
Oh, you're not required to do the bulk storage anymore?
I don't believe I believe it's just based on the length of the number of linear feet of closet area.
Yeah.
And so this is in my view an upgrade.
Yeah, we have seen some projects that had to do linear feet plus a bulk storage above a certain number of bedrooms. Could you take that off the screen now and let's go to the committee and start having some discussion, and then we'll pick up some more items.
I have a question, Joe, just
Yes,
clarification. Brian, you mentioned uniformity of finishes. What does that mean? What does that exactly mean, first of all? And I guess my larger question is, why make the distinction at all? Is it purely for marketing? And if so, what are they marketing?
Right, so when I said uniformity, meaning they were substantially the same, in that chart we just reviewed, I went through the different finishes and the distinctions really being only the kitchen backsplash, the difference between the LVT floor and the wood, between the market rate and the VIH homes, and then the mosaic tile versus ceramic tile at the bathroom floors. In response, furtherance of your question, it's, you know, the demand for the market rate homes and the free market price for those, what the consumer desires versus in the VIH homes, what we view as, you know, having the most ability for wear and tear long-term. As I mentioned, like the LVT, for example, we're doing all the LVT in some other buildings that are 100% affordable, and they do better. I actually like them better. But the marketing folks have told us to get the pricing that the market demands. Our competitors that are renting market rate homes have wood floor, and that's what the consumer desires. So that's why there are only those few distinctions.
Let's go to Dolores next. Sorry, JD, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Thanks, Brian. It doesn't quite answer, but thank you for that.
We're certainly going to come back to that. Don't worry. Dolores?
Hi, I'm saddened that Christine Berthet is not in attendance because this attempt at a project for Covenant House was in full swing of trying to develop something as an idea of how to cooperate with the community and the needs when she was chair, and then when I was chair. I want to commend you. It's a beautiful design. I think that despite its size, which we had fought very hard to reduce the size, it fits for how you've designed it. I also commend you in terms of going above and beyond to provide the affordability throughout the whole building and to provide what you call a home, a very lovely home for people regardless of their income levels. So I appreciate that. And I wanted to at least commend you, and also for those members that are new to know that the conversation on this particular site and how to bring Covenant House their new home, it's gone on for almost a decade or longer. And to be here near the finish line, it's really very satisfying. So thank you for bringing this to us.
I appreciate the kind words. Thank you. It has been a lot of work over the last 4 years to move Covenant House. We had to relocate them into the existing building and consolidate their operations and help them hand in hand design a new building, finance and construct it. So it's been, a fruitful partnership. We're not, joint venture partners by any means, but we're partnership, meaning we've worked together. And so it's, been 4 years, and it's going to be another 4 years to just get this project built and leased up. So it's been a journey, and thank you for the kind words.
James Wallace, followed by Roberta. You're on mute.
Thanks. I want to echo Dolores's congratulations. It's a beautiful presentation, beautiful building. And since Joe said we're going to revisit the finishes, I'm going to skip those questions for now and talk about that later. I just had a few questions about the Covenant House, and maybe this is common knowledge, I'm just not aware. So is the Covenant House, do they own their current building? Were they bought out of that building? And
they own the whole site originally. They own the whole site.
Right. So did they sell and they are now renting? Like, what is, I'm trying to understand the economics of what the Covenant House is.
James, it's a good question. They will be owning their new building, brand new, free and clear. They're not renting it, they own it. And within our new building, they will be owning the 2 floors of Covenant House International office space. So they remain vested in the community. The positive is they had 3 disparate buildings that were not designed nor built for their use. They were disparate, economically hard to manage, weren't well programmed physically. And so now they're consolidated, and they will be consolidated into this new building, which has been designed and constructed as a purpose-built facility.
And
they're debt-free, Brian?
That has been the goal from day one, yes.
Right.
And so to piggyback on that, they'll own the new building free and clear, and the construction is being covered by the transaction cost.
Correct.
Got it.
Just
a couple other
James, one correction. Not they'll own, they own the new building.
Got it. Right. And then a couple questions about the lounge floors. Are any of the lounge floors F&B spaces, or are they just purely open space?
They're all private to the building, so they're not accessible by the public. They're accessible by only residents of the homes. And within the lounge area, there'd be a kitchenette for the tenants to use. They could store drinks and food. There'd be a small prep area, but there's no external or public visitors for the amenities there. It's on the Schedule A of the new building. It's, residential accessory.
Got it. Last question until we get to the finishes question. You mentioned that there would be a discount, a substantial discount for the access to various amenities. Right. Could we go into a little bit more detail, Joe? I don't know if you want to do that now, but I
do. I think you should just give us the details as to what the percentage discount is for the various income bands. I believe that's how you've done it before.
Yeah, I will, I don't have the exact figures on my hand, but I will say on record that I will follow up in writing on what those numbers are, but they would be proportionate to what the household makes. So if the market rate unit pays X for amenity access fee, then the affordable tenant would have a substantial discount to that based on the fact that the income bands are threshold lower. And so they would, the fee would be proportional. Joe, I'll document what those are. And I will also check in-house with property management on how that's working at other buildings, if at all.
And James, we did that in Gotham West and Douglaston, a few of these exclusionary housing. So I think we will, as long as Gotham says they will respond, we'll embody that in our letter of response.
Awesome.
Roberta,
I'll suspend. Thank you. Great answers, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Roberta, followed by Jessica.
Sure. Just one quick question. I was hoping that you could walk us through the different inclusionary and affordability options that you were considering with this particular development and why you chose the ones that you chose.
If you could put that one thing on the screen so we can see it, you can walk it through as to the income bands and then what the rents flow from it, right, Jess? Right, Roberta, that's what you're looking for. Yeah, put that one slide back on the screen.
Yeah, Stephen, while you're putting it up, the set aside, so there are 10 of all the homes would be at 70 AMI, which the city would define as low income, 70% of the area median income being the metropolitan area median income. So this chart on the bottom left shows that at 70 AMI, depending on the household, what the maximum income limits are for one person, two persons, or three persons. We gave those examples because we're going to be creating homes that are studios, 2 bedrooms. Technically, we should add 4 on there, Stephen, because you could have 4 persons for a 2 bedroom. And then the 125 AMI, you could see 104, 500, nearly 120 for 2 person, 2 income earners, and then the 3 person, the maximum income band being 134 and a half, nearly. The answer as to how we got there, you have to compare and contrast. So this is a development that is more than 300 homes. When you're more than 300 homes, there are very specific options under Affordable New York that you could pick. There's F and G. F was an option under Affordable New York, which coupled well with the inclusionary housing option in Hudson Yards to create both low and middle income housing. So the technical answer is those 2 options paired well together. The philosophical answer is also that we like to create mixed income and inclusive communities that have low and middle income housing as well as market rate housing, because it creates synergies amongst the households and positive interaction. So that's both the technical answer of how we sort of solve the puzzle, because that's a regulatory puzzle to solve, and then the philosophical answer as well.
And I think, Roberta, from the broader policy point of view, when the community went through the Hudson Yards rezoning process, we were very concerned that it was not, that the private sector would not create just low income, but low, moderate, and middle. So we have a range of incomes. And I will say to you, this is only the second time this provision has been used to create units at 125% of AMI with Hudson Yards thing. So thank you so much for actually helping us fulfill something here, because we've been working very hard to get there. And although we do need low income units, we've gotten predominantly, I think it is 80% of Hudson Yards has produced low units under 80% of AMI, mostly at 60%. So this is a great move to leaven that a bit. Let's go to our next person, which is Jessica. Or, sorry, Roberta, other questions?
No, that was it. Thank you.
If you can take down the presentation, and let's go to Jessica next.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone for this presentation and the context that the other board members have offered. I was hoping we could just return to the relationship with Covenant, and I'm curious if there's anybody who may be in the audience today representing Covenant, or if they have any, like, do we have any indication that how they feel about the status of the project right now, and to what degree the folks that they may be working with will be likely residents of this building, or just what is that relationship anticipated to look like?
Our day, thanks Jessica for the comments and questions. Our day-to-day contact is Angela Howard. She's in London as we speak, sending her daughter off for a semester abroad. So Angela is the person we usually would invite and have join. I would say Covenant House is absolutely thrilled to have a brand new home. This has been an initiative that they've wanted to fulfill for a very long time. Some of the donors for the new home, as well as their CEO, the head of Covenant House New York, toured the building just most recently, and we're enamored in the quality and the diversity of the program and how it's going to really help the kids and adolescents and young adults moving forward. So I'd say they would tell you they're thrilled. And they are also, I would say, content, and if anything, taking a sigh or a deep breath on the fact that we intend to close, because it sort of helps close the financial equation to create that new home that's purpose-built, but also would be in their full ownership as soon as we close on the second phase. So I would say they have our absolute support, and they're very excited to be moving into the building. And
so anticipating this,
Angela would be here tonight.
Anticipating this question, knowing Angela would not be here, I did check in with Sister Nancy from Covenant House, and Sister Nancy directly, horse's mouth, they are beyond supportive of the whole deal, because the second portion basically creates the debt-free situation for them and creates a large reserve at the same time. So they're in a very good spot. It was never anticipated, Jessica, that any of the Covenant House clients will be able to occupy apartments here because it's just not set up that way at all. And they are continuing a residential facility for their clients, which is mostly transitional, not long-term, in the new building.
Thank you, Joe, for filling that in. That those are all accurate. The new home has transitional beds, educational classroom, workforce development, even has a full court basketball court in the basement. It's very cool.
Maybe you can just say a word about like what outreach you'll be doing, like who you do anticipate being future tenants and where you'll advertise to make sure that both.
Yeah, describe the whole marketing process.
Sure. So these are VIH units, which by statute requires the inclusion of a marketing agent, an administrative agent, to a not-for-profit entity to assist us with the marketing process. Although Gotham does have a compliance team in-house, is pretty sophisticated in terms of understanding how to lease up and rent affordable housing. So we would be focused on the community board preference, which would be 50%, the municipal preference off the top of my head, which is 5%, as well as the UFAS preference, which is 5% for mobilely impaired, 2% for visually and hearing impaired, which are called UFAS units. So those all being set aside within the plan through all sources and mediums of outreach, whether it be local newspapers, citywide newspapers, online advertising, boots on the ground. So coming to the community board, giving an overview of the opportunity, even pre-marketing, to let folks know it's coming ahead. Mailers and meetings with local not-for-profit organizations or trade associations. We're even doing on some other developments that we're leasing up now, mailers. Basically sending mailers out throughout the community to let folks know, signage, so that folks know that we have a teaser site up. So we create teaser sites for our developments, so that people are getting information live, since everybody's so internet and hyper focused on digital access. So using it as a tool to inform folks. So I'd say as many multi-mediums as possible to garner interest, and we try to do that at least 3 to 6 months before HPD, who oversees the lease-up process, even requires it. So we look for a pre-marketing approval to get information out there, and then we do an actual formal marketing process where the application clock starts and then ends before lottery numbers are issued. And so our goal is to maximize the community board preference in all our projects.
I'm going to go to Betty in a moment, but just going to do a follow-up on this. There's very rare units in this income band And we found in our project we did on 53rd Street, we had the highest number of municipal workers apply because they're right in that income band. So we have a huge cohort of city workers, and that's fantastic because it gives us a broad range of people, you know?
That's great. It's it really just takes getting the information out there, because the middle income homes are very sticky, meaning there's very little turnover. It's just the history has been, it's been harder to lease up sometimes just because of lack of knowledge. So if we get everybody to have knowledge and understand the process is worth going through, then you're really meeting the fact that there is a significant demand. Otherwise, so like you said, municipal workers a lot of times don't fit the 60, 70 AMI band, but they meet the 125, but they may not have enough income to pay for a market rate home, for example.
Betty and then Katie.
Hi, good evening. It's hard to believe that this project is now coming forward. I think since I got to the community board, somebody was always talking about Covenant House, and, you know, wow. I have three things I want to ask about. In the new building, the mixed building between affordable and market, are there any spaces in the building that do not cost anything for the affordable apartment units residents?
Yeah, it's the lounge area, and then obviously the entire lobby area. It's the top of the building, which is the lounge area, and then the gymnasium area. But again, we mentioned we would work it out so that those are, you know, very minimal access costs.
Okay, and where was the lounge area? Where was that?
It's on
8th floor.
8th floor.
8th floor.
The top of the podium.
Okay. Was that the one that had like chairs and stuff, and you said people could?
Yeah, so on the north side of the 8th floor, there's doors that go out to the outdoor space where there's barbecues, and I call it the outdoor living room.
Okay, so just that is totally free for everybody.
Yeah, there's no demising walls to disconnect it. It would
Okay.
be obvious and intentional to demise it.
Okay, and for the new Covenant House building, you might have mentioned it, but I didn't quite catch it. Is there any outdoor space that's available? Because they're youth and they need to get some fresh air and do something.
Yes, there is although that's not.
It's not part of this development.
Not part of our building. To answer your question, that building at its 2nd floor, so they've designed a great hall. So there's a staircase in their lobby that goes up to a 2nd floor, which they call their great hall. It's beautiful. And it has these large doors that open up to a landscape terrace on called the 2nd floor terrace. That's all outdoor space. And then in that rear yard facing 40th Street is also ground level outdoor space as well. So they have multiple outdoor spaces in addition to, in the sub-cellar, there's program space with a full court basketball court in addition to a small gymnasium area. So Covenant House did a very nice job of ensuring that they programmed activities for the youth.
Okay, well, that's good to know. One last question, which maybe I shouldn't be asking, and Joe just stopped me. I need to be stopped. There's some allegations that Gotham has illegally raised rents for rent stabilized units, etc. Can that be addressed?
I don't think that's the application at hand, but I could say the fact at hand is that we disagree with the allegations about the utility allowances at Gotham West. However, while the dispute remains outstanding, we have continued to afford all of the tenants the utility allowances, which are in excess of the fact that there already are utility allowances built in to the affordable rent. So the answer is the incentive is continuing to be provided to the tenants while the matter continues to be reviewed.
And Betty, we have gone through a whole sort of study on this. We hope to bring this back to our October meeting. with all the documents. There was a lot of discussion to figure this out. So we're going to try to get into it.
Oh, we'll talk about it next month. Okay, just wanted not to miss it.
Fine, Betty, I don't have a problem with the question.
Katie, and then Maria.
Thanks. I also have 3 quick things. So number 1, about the communal space. I happen to live in a building in Chelsea where our communal space was actually closed during COVID. So they said that even though it was just for our building, it couldn't be used for COVID reasons. And I guess I'm just wondering, it's lovely to have communal space, but if it's actually not available to people in the building, then, you know, that's a challenge. So I'm wondering, do you have similar experience in any of your other buildings, and was your communal space available during COVID? And would you expect it to be available if there continue to be, you know, sort of serious health challenges?
I
That's the
could
first one.
say, yeah, I could say during COVID, the focus on health was extreme, just cleanliness and cleaning. And at the peak of the pandemic, we did, like I'd say, the vast majority of buildings close down communal spaces to reduce the risk of transmission of the virus. Our spaces have been reactivated. I don't think we've rethought the future to the extent people aren't going to continue to gather. So God willing, 4 years from now, we're not having a discussion about the virus. If we are, I've wasted a lot of money on building the space, but the intent is for it to be fully operational and social. But when the issue has presented itself over the last year and a half, we've had the difficult choice of closing those spaces. And it wasn't fun, myself, like many of you, to have to live in isolation like that. But hopefully we're not dealing with that in the future.
Katie, just so you know, from Clinton Housing, we've closed across our portfolio every community room space, every shared space for the transmission. And we are only using them now for very supervised events with very low occupancies, because we're not out of this yet. So that's very common to happen across the city.
But I guess I'm just sort of thinking, like, the people in those micro things, it's like, oh, don't worry, they'll have this communal space they can go to. And I'm like, well, maybe not. So it's just something I think, anyway, for us to be alert to. I do have 2 more quick things. One, for Covenant House, will they be able to serve the same number and or more?
Yes, but let me speak to that, because that was something the community board was very involved in. They have moved some of their residential programs out of this location, specifically because their participants are people who are in the boroughs. So they've created a bunch of satellite places. So it's much more proximate to where people are from originally when they become homeless. But for the other services they do, that's exactly the same in terms of the client load. So for example, they have a full health clinic, and that health clinic was never, you can never know it was there. Now they'll be able to access from the street. So all of their programs, and furthermore, they're moving their national program and international offices to the base of this new building. So they're consolidating everything in one location. So we're having both a better run Covenant House, it's all in one location, and the services they figured out how to deploy and redeploy to make much more sense for the whole organization. That was a long conversation we had. Maria or JD, when was that, like 3 years ago or 2 years ago?
Was in 1937, I think.
Sounds great.
And then my very last question, interestingly, it actually goes to what Betty was talking about. But so we'd actually written back in June or July, we drafted a letter specifically about the utility credits, and just asking that the way Gotham West has had theirs reinstated, we're just asking that the Nicole residents be treated the same. And so I was going to introduce that under new business, but I don't know. Do you, does that work?
I think no. We can't do it under new
wait.
business. Because we didn't put it out there, and we wanted to have some briefing meeting and then bring that to our October meeting. That's what I talked to Jesse about.
Okay. Then with that, I have no more questions. Thank you.
Maria, followed by James.
Just some clarifying questions. I should have gone right after Roberta, but I didn't want to jump in front of people. But I'm a little confused about something. I don't know, Joe, if you can answer, or Brian. I heard Brian mention earlier the units are going to be very low to middle income, but the AMI is 70 to 125%. So I'm just a little confused. If you can clarify.
Let me try to take one, Maria, because this is more about nomenclature as opposed to reality. Okay, when we say low income can range from 40% of AMI up to 80% of AMI, and for the sort of from the financing point of view, right, 80% and below is considered low income. But the majority of projects that come to us are much less than 80 or 70%. That's why we're used to seeing much lower income bands and lower rents. So that's a sort of a affordable housing term. From 100, 125, 165 in our district, we pretty much refer to 100 and 125 as moderate and 165 as middle. However, the de Blasio administration has decided to ignore 165. They don't want to fund that at all, right? So it's now called middle. So you're seeing this sort of fluffy definition because it's a little bit fluffy right now. Does that help? It's really a nomenclature thing.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, 80% and below is considered low for all kinds of purposes, and then there's gradations of low.
And if I recall correctly, what I saw in the chart that Brian put back up was that if a single individual at 70% AMI was making about 58 annually.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Right.
And just for clarity, also, I heard Brian mention it's two programs. So it's VIH and Affordable New York. Those are the two.
However, oddly in this building, like if people remember the Moynihan building on 43rd and 11th, we had Affordable, we had a VIH, and we had Affordable New York, and they did not overlap. So there was that 5% that was not permanent. In this case, because of in Hudson Yards, the ability to take a VIH unit at the higher income band, they can overlap, and that creates the permanency. So there was that whole discussion about how many units would be permanent in addition to the inclusionary ones. In this case, it's 100% inclusionary, and I wish everything were this simple and straightforward. Remember?
Wait, Joe, I'm sorry to cut you off. They can overlap because of?
They're in the Hudson Yards Special District, which allows higher income bands to be inclusionary.
And then my other clarifying thing, I heard earlier, every unit's going to have a washer and dryer, or there's some that are not?
All of them will, except for the micro apartments, but there are no affordable housing units that are micro apartments. So therefore, all affordable units will have washer dryer.
Thank you. And then I was going to mention the distribution of units. Joe covered that. And then the permanently affordable, I cannot recall right now. I don't think people who are in permanently affordable units have to recertify annually, correct?
No, just once, initially. Okay.
And then I guess my other question is, and in these units, do tenants get a utility credit also? And is it noted on their lease? I might be mixing up programs, but.
So I'll just make up a number. If the rent is $1,000 and the utility allowance is $75, the rent's $925, and that's what it gets registered at.
Right. It's not a credit, it's an allowance.
Correct. It's an allowance.
Which the city.
A lot of confusion about that term.
Which will not, you're saying, it doesn't have to be on their lease in that.
It gets baked into the initial rent. So if the example I gave is if the maximum rent, these are not real numbers, but if the maximum rent for a 70 AMI unit was $1,000, the utility allowance gets netted out of the $1,000. So if that utility allowance published by HUD was $75, the effective rent in the lease would be $925.
And registered with HCR as $925.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you have something to add on that? Can you have something to add on that?
No. I think the utility allowance is set by HPD. It's a fixed number.
Right.
Just to clarify.
So before I go to James, I want to come back to the question of uniformity of finishes, which is an incredibly interesting word to use. So we had the same issue with our 43rd Street project we went through with Taconic between 8th and 9th recently. And in that case, there's a couple of things I want to note. First is we understand the whole panelization thing. So no one pushed on that because in general, all units will have stainless steel appliances, period. And they seem to be very equivalent. I do want to ask you specifically first with the backsplash and the mosaic tile for the floors, whatever. There is a real question that we're going to ask you, and we want you to think about this and come back to us. Why is there a constant desire to try to differentiate? We know it's not on purpose, but there's a marketing issue that's going on. A building is a building, and Gotham runs buildings. I run buildings, and I know that when I have the same tile throughout the building, I know how to replace it. So bring this back to your folks to deal with this, because these are two things, that backsplash and mosaic tile you should think about. However, the flooring, simply not buying it, guys. Not it's easier to clean, not that it's more durable, it's vinyl. I don't care that it's wood grain. We are going to ask you, as part of our recommendation, that you do the engineered wood throughout the building, because it's appropriate that everybody have the same floors. We have a few buildings that have these different floors, and people notice it, and we've heard about it. And we have one building specifically now we're dealing with, which is the Silverstein building, where it's become a bone of contention. And it's a marker. So you guys are well-known and well-run. Please come back to, we're going to put this as a requirement to say same flooring throughout. Let's go to James, okay? And then Maria.
Two clarifications and then one like more open-ended question. Clarification one is with regard to the 45th floor, piggybacking off Betty's question. She asked if there are any spaces that were free. And Brian, you came back with the 8th floor lounge. That suggests to me that the 45th floor lounge is not free.
It's part of the amenity package, right?
I did say that the 45th floor would be part of the pay to access amenity, but again, we will discount that access fee. But yes, the 45th floor it was part of the fee.
Understood. Sorry, that wasn't clear to me. Thank you. Second clarification is with regard to the financing structure. Thank you, Joe, for reemphasizing that Covenant House will own the entire property. Does that mean that there's like a $1 lease? You know, or I'm just trying to make sure I understand. If Covenant House owns the property on which the new residential building is being built, what is the relationship between Gotham and Covenant House with regard to that property?
So Covenant House owns the building and the feet of the land for their new building.
Yeah.
Gotham is buying the feet of the land for phase 2 at 550 10th Avenue. That purchase price is retiring their construction loan for phase 1 entirely, and also enabling them to have sufficient capital to be able to own their 2nd and 3rd floor condo unit as well.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. Last question, and Joe's known me for years, so he probably already knows this question is coming. Public art,
maybe?
I'm a huge advocate for public art. It's just an important thing that enhances the neighborhood. It enhances the environment for the residents. Didn't really hear anything in the presentation about it. Two sub questions. One, are you participating in the 2% for public art or going above and beyond that? And two, if you could sort of elaborate on what your plans are for public art in general, regardless of the 2% for art program.
James, I will be honest to say I'm naive as to what program that is. So if you can explain it to me, I will surely.
But James, that pertains to public sites. It's not.
You're right. That's for government buildings. But I think it's a worthy goal, right? If you're spending $300 million on a building, what are you dedicating to art?
That's just a broader question, Brian. You get back to us with, because we ask that question of every developer coming in terms of your public spaces. Maria. Remember, guys, we're now at 7:42. So Maria, go ahead.
I'm going to make this concise so we can hear from attendees. I was just going to reiterate, Joe, what you said about appliances and finishes, because I actually wrote it down and forgot to mention it. That's it. So we can go.
So I guess I want to clarify one thing too, because now I understand the 8th floor for a moment. Can you access the 8th floor exterior space not from the gym area?
No.
Okay, so then you can't, so therefore the gym is not going to be a fee issue.
The two areas that that I had mentioned, and we'll just take another look at it, Joe, is the gym and the 45th floor lounge. The outdoor space on the 8th floor, which is very narrow, just outside the gym area, the idea of it was to be sort of like an outflow space for the workout space.
But are you able to, going from the building, to get right onto the 8th floor outside?
I know, because it's the
Without
gym area
going
south
to
of
the
the
gym.
core and the lounge is north of the core.
Right.
One distinction too, though, Joe, is that on the north side of the 8th floor, outside of the lounge space, there's also another larger outdoor space.
Right. So I think you got to clarify this a little bit, because the last thing we want to do is for you to say in the meeting, the outdoor space is not subject to a fee, but then you can't get there besides going through a fee. So in the end of the day, let's figure it out so it's clear. Otherwise, we're going to not be happy and respond.
Yeah. We're gonna put together a letter based on all of the questions and requests that have been made. And if you give us a few days, we'll have it in writing to you.
And whatever you can do that is cleaner makes sense, so it's not so convoluted. Betty, another question? You're still muted, Betty.
I just had to unmute. I just had to get my little thing. Okay. If Jesse Bodine were in this meeting, he would ask this question. So I'm asking it for him. What is your plan for your garbage and keeping it off the sidewalk?
Yeah, so we've designed, in that ground floor plan we had showed, we have a pretty substantial, like the area that was in gray on the ground floor. So we have a pretty substantial back of house and an oversized compactor room in the basement. We're all dealt with the issues, like unlike Chicago style, we don't have rear alleys for garbage pickup, but we try to do our best. It's a challenge to put the garbage out, I'd say just in time. But so we oversize the room so that we're not storing garbage on the street. And if the garbage comes Wednesday, at the last moment we possibly can on a Tuesday evening, it goes out. That's the honest answer, Betty. We make the rooms as big as possible now. And we try and put it out at the absolute last minute.
Right, because one of these is, Brian, we have a few blocks now, but we have one block with 200 feet of garbage on garbage days. Imagine that.
I can imagine. I wish there was another way. We're looking, Joe, in a master plan development that we're doing where there's enough land and there's a significant public parking garage of trying to have central garbage storage so that this doesn't happen. I empathize with the concern. I can't refute that. It's unfortunately an issue we deal with throughout the city.
So we had one committee members having. Yeah, we had one.
With his hand up, so I over so he can speak.
Yeah, he's not here. He's gone.
Chris is here. Chris has already been brought over.
Oh, you brought him over. Okay, there you go. Chris,
brought him over
already. Hi, everybody.
He's gone. He's here.
Yeah, he's there. He's everywhere. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris LeBron. I'm on Manhattan Community Board 4. I sit on the House Kitchen Land Use Zoning Committee and the Waterford Parks and Environment Committee. I have a few questions. I missed the first 5 minutes of this presentation. What is the lead rating of this building?
Chris, we're not pursuing a LEED plaque per se, but we do have a green wall. So in the building code, under zoning, it's an enhancement for sustainability. So we have a super efficient exterior wall, which I would say if we did seek the plaque, we're at absolute minimum silver, probably above that threshold based on our exterior wall performance. So we've got a green bonus exterior facade.
Okay. Thank you. So in addition to being above the LEED federal rating, what sustainability measures have you taken for the interior development of these apartments and spaces?
So I'll work backwards with the easiest and then the more complex. So from all the finishes are eco-friendly, non-formaldehyde, low VOCs. All the fixtures are super low flow. We even do things like having
all the plumbing fixtures.
Plumbing fixtures. We buy appliances that are Energy Star rated. Even on the water risers, we install leak detectors to ensure that they're even the most minuscule drips. And if you have 30 risers in a building, that could definitely create demand. So from leak detection to low flow fixtures to Energy Star appliances to appropriate level of finishes. And then the entire high-rise building is heat and cooled with a central cooling tower and heat pump system. So a highly efficient mechanical system. All of the units, I'd say the vast majority of the units have kitchen exhaust or fresh air supply in hallways. So it's a very healthy building from the level of finish to mechanical system design. And I'd say the greatest component of it is the entire facade is in curtain wall. And the curtain wall is highly efficient, as I mentioned, by being a green wall bonus building.
Last efficiency question that I have, and then I'll go to my final question with regard to marketing. So we have buildings with electric allowances. We even have buildings in this community where residents don't actually have to pay to Con Ed. And those building residents have a tendency of being excessive users on the grid. Will you be promoting large ceiling fan usage for these apartments on top of HVAC, so that way we're not worrying about pulling too much from the current energy grid?
We have not designed ceiling fans in any of the buildings. It's a customary for us to do that, but this mechanical system design is efficient, and although there's limiters on the window for safety purposes, there's also sources of natural ventilation.
Okay, so let's go to marketing. You said that there are going to be two bodies doing the marketing. One is mandatory, it'll be a nonprofit organization doing marketing. Will they be doing it for the whole building, or will it be a split duty between Gotham and that organization?
Market rate by Gotham, the VIH/Affordable New York units, led by an administrative agent, but with support, and I call it a second check from Gotham since we have in-house compliance and expertise.
Okay, so I only ask because I have 10 years of advertising marketing experience. And so the last question is this, with regard to marketing for affordable housing, so that we don't come across another situation that happened in Gotham West, would you be willing to be transparent with your marketing materials before they are published or go live on any digital or print medium?
We believe we're transparent in everything we do, but
Not saying that you're not, but if you could be, I just believe in full transparency. So I totally appreciate the professional peer review by Gotham's marketing group. Would you be willing to share that with the co-chairs of this committee to make sure that everything's in line?
We can share the marketing materials, but first and foremost, they have to be reviewed and approved by
HPD.
You cannot share something that HPD doesn't approve with the public. I would be in trouble if I did that.
Brian, I don't want to get you in trouble. I just, sometimes even HPD does the wrong thing. And we've been victim of that here at Hell's Kitchen. But thank you for answering those questions. I thank you, co-chairs, for bringing me on.
Thanks, Chris.
So we have no other members to speak, but I do want to raise one issue that I've left to the end because that's going to be a pain. So the Clinton Health Kitchen Land Use Committee spent a lot of time with this project, and we specifically talked about the library wall and the reconstruction of the library wall. I do not see it, and the Covenant House building is done. Could you explain what has happened?
Sure, Joe. I think this is a conversation that's going to need to include Covenant House. We did salvage the remnants of the wall that would support a potential future reconstruction of a single-story replacement, which is, I think, the option that was narrowed in on. The ultimate decision to construct it lies in Covenant House's decision place. I don't know if a formal decision has been made on that at this time. I leave that to Sister Nancy and Angela, but it's in storage and it's on their property, and they would have to elect to proceed to build it.
So if we can, that's a good answer, but it's a little bit slippery, and because it's obviously something has happened and we're not aware of it. So I need you to commit that you will arrange a meeting with Covenant House, yourselves, and the board. Contact Jesse regarding this, and we should meet in the next 2 weeks. All right? I think that sounds fair. Yes, Brian?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Good. And I think we need to have Sister Nancy and probably David Pickett there too, because we made the deal together with all those folks. So let's go back to the inclusionary housing application in front of us. Let me try to just go through what we have. We have an application that has units 137, correct? Yes, 137 units at 70% of AMI and 125 of AMI, majority at 125. We will list the income bands and the rents in our letter. We are going to get information back from Gotham about, we appreciate that the distribution is up to the 43rd floor out of 44. We are going to get information back as to actual exposures of these units, and we'll see what it is with a color-coded plan. And I think hopefully that will be just fine. So we would support that distribution on the floors. We have the issue of amenities, and there will be a discount rate, and they will give us that discount as it works for the various income bands and detail that very clearly. We will also clear up the issue of how the 45th floor, the 8th floor, everything works together. I think it might be simpler to sort of say have everything just open in this case, or have everyone have a fee, and just everyone has a fee for something. For flooring, for the finishes, I think we're fine with everything. We're going to ask you to come back to this issue why there has to be a separate backsplash, a separate mosaic tile. And then for the flooring, I believe the committee senses it's got to be the same. If the committee members can give you a nod on that, if that's accurate as to where we're going. Okay. So that, unless I've missed anything. Oh, and a note about garbage storage, and they'll speak to us on that. James? On the public art, yeah. Public art.
And before we lose Brian and Stephen and Krista, because Krista's the architect, I'm just wondering if we could just have 30 seconds on what conversations have taken place.
Regarding?
Art.
Oh, I think, James, we're going to have to ask them to come back to us because we gave them a curveball. So I don't want to put them on. We can put them on the spot for things they showed to us, but things they haven't really put out there. Let's have them come back. All right, JD?
So, yeah, I feel very, very strongly about the finishes. I don't understand the rationale. This community should not be driven by marketing. Also,
Right.
Covenant House is a wonderful organization, and I don't think they would be very happy with this sort of discrimination. And I think we need to say that very strongly in the letter. In my opinion, I can't accept, it makes no sense. Also, from a financial point of view, why not just get all the same? Isn't that just as cheap to buy?
Yeah,
So I feel very
think the idea.
very strongly about that, Joe.
Yeah, I think the idea is just saying that we want equal finishes, but detail out what's going on here, except the issue with the appliances. I actually think the whole crazy craze of panelizing appliances that disappear, as long as they're all stainless steel, we don't care about that at all. So just going around the room quickly on the general tenets of this letter, how are we okay? Jessica? James?
Joe, can you just make a motion?
Oh, yeah, yes, I'm sorry. Dolores,
Okay.
make that motion. I
Yeah,
apologize.
because we've all had an opportunity to speak and discuss.
Yeah,
So I'd like to
good.
make a motion that from what you've outlined, dependent upon receiving the additional information that we support what we have seen, and also adding, as usual, all the history of this project.
I would just
second.
Second by James. Sorry,
Yeah,
James.
I would
Katie.
just add there's been a good amount of praise for what Gotham is doing, and certainly for cooperating with the community. That should be in the letter as well.
Absolutely. On that motion, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All those present and eligible? Pete, did you? Pete, we haven't heard from you. In favor? Yes, he raised his hand. Okay, perfect.
I am,
Oh, Sabrina, sorry.
Joe, I'm going to abstain on this right now and give myself some time to talk to some people. I just feel like I need more information. I want to hear
Right,
more.
but remember, this is a committee meeting. We're in public. You have to vote at this moment.
No, I know. So that's my vote. I'm abstaining.
Oh, you're abstaining.
At full
Got it.
board, I can change my, I can
Understood.
approve it at that
Understood. Okay. So Maria's an abstention. Sabrina?
I'm not comfortable right now.
Huh?
I'm for.
4. Okay, good. All right. So thank you very much for a nice, good, deep information session on this. And Brian and your team, thank you very, very much for coming to us and being here. Okay.
We thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Joe and board. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Good night.
guys very much. Bye. Good night. Okay, Maria, budget.
So, show of hands, who went through the budget? Through our budget priorities, the capital and expense. Oh, there's a lot of hands. I did too. So I'm wondering if we can discuss it tonight and see how much of it we can discuss tonight. My other thought is that we can also discuss it as much as we can tonight, and then also maybe talk about some new ideas possibly. And then we send out a list that you all can look at before the October meeting, and we vote in October for, you know, what the list is and the order in which we have the items. So I'm not sure where to begin this discussion.
So Maria, if I may, it's Dolores. I wanted to ask Jessica, not to put you on the spot, but since you are second vice chair and run the budget, I'm just wondering if you can, for at least the new members, just outline what this purpose is. And since we have our budget meeting coming up, I think that'll be helpful to frame what we're trying to achieve here.
Sure, happily, thank you. So for everybody who's new, this is a moment to together as a community board identify a list of priority projects, really looking at two sources of funds, expense and capital. And we can talk more about what qualifies as each if you'd like, but put together some recommendations together with the other committees that are part of our board, that then go together with a statement of district needs to really reflect on the uniqueness of CB4 and what we have happening in our community right now. And ultimately, these materials, as Maria said, get compiled and voted on by the full board, but are ultimately presented to those at the city council to help inform their decision-making as they look to make a new budget for next year. So this is an annual process, and it always feels like it's like almost always happening. It's always budget season, it seems. But in effect, whoever will be our new mayor and our new city council person, along with the many other, we're going to have essentially a completely new city council in the next year following the election in November. They will work together to create a budget for New York City. And we want to make sure that the issues that we see as most affecting our district are reflected there. So it looks like there were a lot of raised hands of people who looked at the material, but essentially we looked to try to be as specific as possible with our requests so that we can try to get funding directed to those very specific and targeted issues. And so this is a process, again, by which every committee will do that work of making their recommendations. And then the budget committee works ultimately with the executive committee's approval, and then of course the full board to prioritize that list to make sure that the priorities that are reflected here are somehow layered with all the other priorities of all the other committees. So this is really important work, and delighted so many people read the materials in advance. Anything, and I should say, like, there are a lot of people who've been doing this for a long time. So Dolores, if there's anything you want to add or any additional context, please do.
The only thing I wanted to add is for folks that aren't used to this, we are appealing to the specific agencies across the entire administration on the things that we need. So for our committee, we are looking at a whole slew of agencies that will deal with issues of housing and health and human services. So that is really what this is about. It's by saying in this community, these are the priorities. We're asking these specific agencies to carve out for those needs that we're identifying.
And Jessica, could you speak a little bit about capital versus expense? People don't understand that.
Sure. Well, if you have a chance to take a look, it's sometimes easier to see, kind of see it in action. And I think you'll see the distinction is sort of there in the kinds of items that are indicated under each proposal. But essentially, capital is permanent building items. I think we also have some vehicle stuff that falls under capital in the city budget. But really, these are long-term projects They're also much bigger, which makes them harder to get funded, frankly. Whereas programmatic is much more of the, staffing, kind of ongoing costs that are needed to run the programs that we may identify as being needed or bolstered at this time.
And I want to note for members who have not done this before, the capital budget, things may be in that budget for years, but they eventually get funded. An example I always use is the Chelsea Rec Center on 25th Street. It was #1 in our capital expense budget for 18 years, and it finally got funded and it finally got completed. So sticking in and being there for a long time means that we're going to get stuff done in our district. And that's why we have to prioritize things to understand what can happen or not happen. And we're balancing multiple types of needs, whether it's sewers versus housing versus streets, you name it, it all comes in the various parts of the budget. So Maria, why don't we just go around the room and take people's questions or thoughts on the items that have gone, people who've gone through it already? No hands are raised. Anybody?
Yeah. Betty.
Betty.
Yeah, I'll take some notes.
The thing on my mind is, I guess it's a capital expense, the conversion of empty buildings, maybe empty hotels, other kinds of buildings into permanent low-income housing or housing for people who are homeless. I think that is a major priority.
Okay. We have a number of projects in there that have a homeless housing component. So you should probably.
People who get permanent housing, not shelters.
Correct. Yeah, we have a number of projects that are in our budget already for permanent housing. And those permanent housing developments have a homeless housing component, for example.
Yeah, for funding for permanently.
Right.
But I think this isn't, well, this idea isn't for specific buildings. It's for.
Oh, yes, it is, but Betty.
I'm saying for in general.
Right. So I think it's important to remember that we need to identify locations and programs that can be applied to our district, because otherwise they'll just say, yes, we'll do that. That's the standard budget response, as opposed to, yes, we'll do that in the district at this location. That's where we achieve something, as opposed to making ourselves feel good and then just having them say, oh, that's great, we'll do that.
Well, that's a big ticket item for us to identify the buildings.
But Betty, that's what we've done in the past. We've identified projects, and the Covenant House had been in the budget process for years. Slaughterhouse budget process for years. It's. I mean, Jessica said it. If you're not specific, you don't really even have a shot of getting the support from the council members, et cetera, to get behind it, to really lobby for that item to be in the budget. I mean, here's something I want to ask of the committee. I mean, since many people have looked at it, are there some items that people saw in there that either one, because you haven't been on the board a while, you don't understand, you want to ask some questions? Were there some items that you think, why is it on there at all? Are there some items that you think they really should be top priority? And I think that if we can figure that out in this meeting, that'll be helpful. Otherwise, it's probably better for us to all go back, look at the spreadsheets, and then communicate via email if we don't have that input tonight.
Sabrina?
Yes, I have a question. So I was actually looking to a specific project, but I don't remember if this was funded last year. It is about the Harborview Terrace 525.
Harborview, right.
That was the one you were talking about just now?
No, that's one specific project, and that is for the Harborview. That's another Hudson Yards commitment, right? Where the city issued an RFP, it was agreed to, and then of course they changed their mind and decided they wanted to build a 50-story tower. But we are due to get a certain number of permanently affordable units there. And of course, Betty, there will be a homeless component when that is built, because all new buildings now have a homeless component.
Yeah, support and housing of the MIA that we use. So can we bring this back, this issue?
Absolutely.
It's still on the list.
It's on the list, but we have to bring back to the budget, right? Is that how it works?
Yes.
Last year we have to bring those items that were not, and this will qualify as capital.
Yes,
My point is,
yes.
yeah, it's gonna stay there. I'm sorry, that's what I was trying to say. It's
I,
gonna
I
stay.
know, but we're talking about the idea of like, what do we want to support? Well, that's a good example. There's over 230 units that were supposed to be built there. Yes, we should push that and push these things toward the top of our list too, because remember, we have a new administration coming in, and the old administration is the one that has had these things stuck. There's a whole series of projects that we've worked on that have just been like frozen because they didn't want to do it that way. They wanted to do something much more gargantuan. So yes, that's a good idea, Sabrina, I think.
But I think speaking of funding and specificity, Dolores mentioned being specific and it came up with Betty. I think one of the things that's not on the list that we've talked about and written a letter about was the supportive housing site at Hartley House, and having that on the list. We don't have that there, and I think that's something new that we should put on. That would be, the only thing I'm confused about, I'm pretty sure that's under capital, correct? That's not expense because it's not.
No, it's a HPD program.
Yeah.
So Maria, aren't you on the budget committee?
I am.
Yay. And Sabrina, please come if you can. So, oh, great.
Gonna go to Pete and then JD. Pete? We'll go to JD next, and we'll go back to Pete. JD?
I'm sorry, I didn't look at the list, but whatever Jessica and Maria and Dolores want is fine with me. It's great. Just one question. Housing is terribly important, but so are human services and certainly for our elder, senior population, those kinds of, is that on the list?
Yes.
In any way? Okay.
Yes. Expanding
Yeah.
DIFTA funding as well as, I forgot what it's called, some type of funding for housing for seniors, but I forgot what the program is.
That was a
There's
big discussion.
there's also requests for additional funding for some of the food programs as well as mental health for seniors. These are things that have been in the budget request probably for 5 to 6 years, and we've seen some responses that have been slightly positive, but when we don't get the full response, we continue to ask for them.
If you remember,
I guess my feeling, these come almost ahead of housing. People have to eat, and people have to.
They're different funding streams.
So those are
JD.
important.
The capital side is the investment in the housing, but we had remember Maria, we had the groups come to us, the various senior centers, asking for expansion. About a year. Yeah.
I will note though that we do only have one request, as I see it, to DIFTA. And so, Dolores's comment that we get an opportunity, we have to prioritize all of our requests, but actually the agency that receives it is only going to, the agency only receives the requests that are relevant to their pot. And so we may want to think about, to the extent we're concerned about seniors in our district, what are we asking DIFTA for? So we can.
I want to go to James in a second, but didn't we have both Project Find and Encore come to us asking for specific increases about a year and a half ago or so?
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
did.
Right, Jessica?
It came at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, beginning of the pandemic, right? We had a
It was
whole
around, I think May, they came to the May meeting.
There's a lot of discussion about getting online and getting that kind of capability for people to join these kinds of.
You remember that,
meetings.
Jessica? There was a lot of very specific requests they made.
Yeah, we can go back and look at that. It's interesting that it's.
And some of it is actually it's actually under expense at we had it ranked at number 5, expanding the existing programs that DIFTA has. But that was for meals.
Because there was a whole issue about meals and they could do more if they had more.
So that request, and it names Encore in here as well as Safe in the Penn South Newark. And as an emergency food provider in my day job, I think that's really important. But I think JD is also noting that there's a lot of work that needs to happen beyond just food. So we can do that.
Go to James and then Roberta.
Yeah. I'm curious, Joe, are there any programs that you're aware of that promote ownership of property? We talk a lot for as many years as I've been on this committee and on the board, affordable housing, which I think is one of the most important things we do, is always discussed. But as we all know, one of the number one ways of generating wealth and independence is ownership. And I'm curious, are there any programs that you're aware of that have either been attempted or are currently in place to promote ownership? Because that, to me, helps break that cycle. You know, affordable housing, though it's important, it also doesn't promote necessarily wealth building and independence. It ends up creating a lot of money for developers, for profit and not for profit. What do you think?
So let me give you a few responses on that. First is there is a home ownership option in Inclusionary, and we've done it in our board, and that's on the allowed project between 43rd and 44th Street. That was one of the things we did. Our community board historically has been involved in home ownership and supported the creation of roughly 550, 600 units of affordable co-ops. But I want to caution you on one thing. The issue of the wealth generation, normally our board is not in favor of enabling people to buy something and sell it at a great profit to create wealth for them. Instead, the wealth generation comes that you buy an affordable co-op, limited equity, there's a limited profit, and because you're in a place that is stable, you actually have a better life and can afford more. It is a fallacy in our district, and we have seen some incredible failures of people who purchased apartments through city programs for literally a nominal price, $250. And then after a period of restriction, resold those apartments for $400,000. That is not about promoting affordable home ownership and not about dealing with generational wealth. That's about a windfall. So there really is an ability with good, well-run affordable housing, whether it's rental or it's rent stabilized or it's ownership, people do better because their income, their housing costs remain so steady that as they improve in their lives, they're able to save and build better. And I've seen families where their kids actually go to school, come better, and they are the ones that we can't serve anymore because those kids are making more money than the goddamn affordable housing, allows. So that's the real tricky thing. And James, I can talk to you offline because it's a good thing, but a lot of slippery slope involved at the same time. But we have in our district, over 500, 600 units of affordable co-ops.
One follow-up, and thank you for that background, Joe. I just want to be clear, I'm clearly not advocating for windfalls.
Of course not. Of course not.
But I appreciate the context of the fact that we've created in this district in the past 500 units of affordable co-ops. Is there some way to incorporate this into the statement of district needs to create more of those? Because to be honest, until you said that in my years of being on this board, I didn't know that, and I haven't heard it being discussed. And I think that would be an important initiative to advance further.
So we also have, that was historically what we did, but on the Clinton Urban Renewal area, we have a large building, 120 units or 150. That alone was an affordable limited equity co-op. So we've done it. The problem is the city in our district really doesn't favor it because, again, they don't favor our district. So I think it's not so much a budget need here, James, as we should have this as a policy discussion in our community and then figure out how to revive a program that existed that the city turned its back on.
Thanks, Joe.
Roberta, and then Sabrina.
So I wanted to raise the possibility of making a health request. I think almost all of the requests in the budget are housing related, which makes absolute sense. I think it is probably the number one priority for the district. But the sort of realization in the past couple of months that the coronavirus may be with us for some time has, I guess, brought us to a point where we might want to look into having widely available and accessible rapid testing. The city has done a relatively poor job, unfortunately, at expanding this, making it accessible to people in congregate facilities as well as schools, senior centers, what have you. And that perhaps including that, even though this budget is meant for many months from now, including that request in some preliminary discussion with the agencies might be fruitful or productive.
We have to figure out what agency that belongs in, Dolores, right? Like, I'm not quite certain who actually.
So Jessica, I think that we may have someone that we can start to invite to our budget meetings. Roberta.
Right,
Yeah.
because you never know. I mean, but I will note, which is amazing. I had a COVID scare in our office this week, and everyone had to go for quick testing. And even at a walk-in urgent care center, it's free because it's subsidized by the city, which is amazing to me. You know, that all types of employees don't have to worry about getting tested or paying for that test.
Would it be city planning maybe part of that conversation?
I don't know. I think let's put it as a question to figure out where that would live, because that's the real question, right?
Yeah. Yep. That's good.
And let alone now, but going forward, who knows where things get put in agencies. Sabrina?
Oh, I just thinking about Mitchell-Lama. Is it something that we can promote?
I think it's about the whole idea of the affordable home ownership. And instead of saying the name of it, because that program is long defunct, it's what do we do, you know, to get this to happen? Mitchell-Lama is a good example, James. People are in affordable maintenance for a very long period of time, and everybody did better in their lives, right? Because there's stability.
No, I understand. I'm just thinking, like, as a district, if we have a responsibility to educate our folks about these programs, like I heard about Mitchell-Lama in grad school. I mean, it's not very, unless you dig into it, it's hard to know. And it can be confusing. So I don't know if this is just to piggyback on that and just kind of, and this could be in our budget, or how can we do it? How can we introduce it? Or maybe it's just gonna be part of our website. I don't know if even it's there, some sort of education on how to afford, you know, how to buy housing in our district.
That's probably a good thing for like a policy on the website, because it's probably not, people don't just know it, you know, like.
Well, Joe, Sabrina has a point that you can make a request to HPD to add budget for marketing for specific programs that do impact our area. They may not have it in the budget to go ahead.
They don't yet, but they don't do the, like on Mitchell-Lama, they don't do the marketing. Mitchell-Lama does the marketing.
Right. Well, right. But
Your
just in
regulatory
general,
budget.
just housing avenues, ways for people to find housing. And one of the things that came up in the presentation on the Gotham project that we know that happened at Gotham West, the actual AMI that we're trying to attract didn't know that there was something to apply to, because there was this complete vacuum of getting the word out to that specific community. So it could be a request. I think, you know, Jesse is really the guru on what makes sense to ask. And what
right,
doesn't.
because one of the things there, I want to know, I was very much involved in the marketing stuff at Gotham toward the end to figure out what to do. Gotham was asked to take the new system, which now is the old system, right? Which is the Housing Connect. And they rightly said, we're freaked out. It's never been used before for any large project. And they did it the old way. Today, though, this Housing Connect stuff
it works.
You're able to go online and you're able to sign up and you put in a profile and you get email, like it's a whole, that just started with Gotham West. And so they had a huge problem finding, you know, our modern middle income project on 53rd, we got 60,000 applications. Gotham West had the hardest time getting applications because the system wasn't there. So I think we should really ask, that's a sort of Jesse question too, what makes sense. But I think Sabrina's issue is how do people even know about it to begin with, right? That's the underlying thing. And maybe that's something our committee does and say, we should be having a page on the website that is specific about the housing opportunities in our district and the types that are there. We have a full housing inventory. We did that, right? We have a whole set of spreadsheets. So I think that's something that I want to mark this. Yeah. Maria? And JD.
Two questions and a comment. Jessica, I remember we did a CB4 survey a couple of months ago or last year. And if I remember correctly, the top 3 things that came up from constituents in the community was homelessness, trash, and I can't remember the third thing.
Mental health?
Yeah, I'd have to look that up, but
mental health or public safety, or what did I write down? I wrote homelessness, affordable housing, and trash. That's what I thought it was.
I just want to note the survey was done prior to this last set of requests. So, so those we can go back and look at it. I definitely will do that before the meeting. We should refresh ourselves, but that feedback worked its way into what you have.
And we have one more. Can you bring? I'm sorry,
I have 2 more Wait, Joe, I have two more things. The other thing is my other question. Oh, I might be jumping the gun here, Joe, but one of the things that we had requested was it's under capital is diversifying the shelter population in the community, including having a family shelter. And I'm wondering, because of the 41st Street, we're talking about 41st Street, does that mean,
that is the family shelter.
Supposed to be a family shelter, well, I guess this is more for the nominations, not nominations, budget.
No, this is for Jessica. I mean, we have a family shelter funded, which means it comes out of the capital side.
So we can remove that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we will go through at the meeting for those who will participate in the budget meeting and essentially pull out the things that we can say, congratulations, success. Right, the things they like, actually they need more work, it's close but not done, or whatever that is, and then add to the list and then reprioritize the entire list again, given today's reality.
And I think it's important to note that there are two items that are related to individuals and families exiting shelter and receiving light touch services and additional services after they leave beyond that. And both say funded. And I am going to be having some discussion with DHS about that because I'm not clear on how it is. And Jesse wasn't able to answer, so just putting a meeting together about that.
Great, so that's an example where like, if they get to say it's funded, but we don't feel it's met our needs, it's an opportunity for us to be more specific in what is it what is the change we want to see and what do we need the dollars to enable that, and not let them off the hook and saying, yes, we think we did that when we don't feel that that's actually been accomplished.
Going to go to JD and then Nellie, can you bring Chris LeBron over from the public? JD?
I just want to know, how can I get one of those $250 apartments?
Pretty much to death at this point. Chris LeBron? You're on mute, Chris.
Yep. It puts me automatically on mute and turns me off. So it's doing you all the service for a little bit. So to answer Roberta's question with regard to testing, rapid testing sites, you'll have to go through New York City Health and Hospitals and a test and trace court, and that falls under the Department of Health and New York's health doctor. And then the express rapid test, that's generally done through a city council member's office and the borough president's office. So if there's a lack of testing at schools, we have graphic arts, we have environmental studies, we have humanities, we have lab. These are large schools. Even Midtown West recently just had a second grade class shut down for a COVID scare. Those parents were all instructed to go elsewhere for testing. They should be providing those testings on site. So if it's a matter,
right.
Yeah. So it's truly a matter of requesting the resources now as it is needed. And then if you were going to make a request in the budget to have that ongoing while we're in pandemic and endemic, I would highly suggest doing that as well. But this committee should be requesting our elected officials in the borough president's office for rapid partnership testing trucks as soon as possible.
I both agree with that. I did just want to offer a point of clarification. When I say rapid tests, I believe that there is value in these rapid at-home antigen tests that are widely available in many cities abroad. Unfortunately, it does not appear that in the United States we're making that available. Part of that is the lack of approval of testing, but we do have them available. And the city could purchase them and help distribute them to.
But that's sort of a federal thing too, of production and putting the emphasis, like in Europe, that's where the emphasis is. So it's being made available.
Roberta is right.
No, but as an aside, there is a supply issue in the United States. The main contractor who had put all these together, when everyone started getting their vaccinations, they literally shut down most of their services and destroyed tons of these kits. So there now is a massive drain of supply. But you are right, and it would be a longer term thing to think about. So Monday night, 5 o'clock.
Right. And we also have, for example, we have Ryan Center. They could be funded to provide a service to schools because they're here already. they have a staffing, staffing issue. They have somebody staff, that person gets sent to the school for the day to deal with it, like that kind of stuff. We have an ecosystem, but we're not really using it because we know that things are not coordinated very much in the city sometimes.
Correct. And the mayor's office still has that competition that it's yet to settle in terms of coming out with settling with contracts and products for those who submitted for rapid testing. That's still outstanding. And with regard to getting packages out, if there are schools in need, I actually have a partner in New Jersey that produces rapid tests. So if there are classes and schools that need it, just please get a hold of me and I can figure out how many units available that they can donate to that school or classroom.
Thank you, Chris.
Welcome.
Any other questions, Maria, on budget? I think we had a good open discussion, moving this along a bit so we can come back in October. Anybody else in the committee? Okay, so we did pretty good because it's 8:28, which means
One more thing.
we're 2 minutes short of
Sorry,
2 hours.
Make
sure we do it. Come on.
Listen, on the budget, well, one of the responses from the agency, I think it's DOB, we had code enforcement expansion. They wrote further study. They need further study. Do you know what that means, or should we be finding out more?
It means bullshit, and we need to hold our feet to the fire.
Okay.
Let's talk about code enforcement. 343 West 37th Street cannot be demolished. DOB issues a permit to demolish illegally. They stop it, and now there's a fire there, and there's squatters. Like, it's, come on. They don't do code. They don't.
Your response is exactly what someone else
So
said.
I know you want to cut this short, but what I would really ask is if Joe and Maria, you can ask of the committee, for those that won't be able to join the budget meeting on Monday, if there are ideas. Betty, you had some broad ideas. I think even the broad ideas, we can probably in budget committee think of maybe some specific examples, but I think if everyone could at least submit that to Maria and Jessica, that would be great. At least if you as co-chairs think that would be helpful.
I think following up, our issue is have discussions and then get some sense of it, and then please submit specific things to Jessica and Maria, and then we'll take it up in full at our October meeting again.
I think Dolores is right, but I wanted to say no. Don't send me anything else, please.
Send it to Jessica. Sorry.
Send it to me. Send it to me. And also,
He's just lying.
If you have any questions, like what Maria just raised, it says further investigation needed or further study. Like if there are any questions like that you want us to go back with Jesse or with the agency, please let us know, because we can do that as a separate.
And that needs to be by.
Joe and Maria, I would follow through with Sabrina's idea about getting something on the website about buying your
What I want to
home.
do, I'm going to ask Nellie, bring this up on our next committee meeting so we put this an item to discuss. I think it's the kind of thing that's going to take a moment, and let's clarify what we want to do in order to give the office direction.
Okay.
Have a public discussion about it. I assume
Motion to
there is-
adjourn.
That's what I'm looking for, Dolores.
I
and
know,
got
I
it.
know, I could see it.
All those in favor? Thank you so much. Thank you for that very good discussion on the inclusionary. Thank you, Hector. Good night, everybody.
Stay dry.
Okay. Yeah.